Hello, students. Today we will begin learning about dress ups and adding these dress ups to our writing. When you think of dress up, you probably think about dressing up yourself, right? You might put on a necklace or a nice outfit. This is the same concept that we're doing with our writing. We're adding little items to it as we go that are going to improve it and make it sound better and dress it up. So, our first one is a who which clause, which is actually an adjective clause. Now, from previous grammar lessons, you should have learned that an adjective clause or an adjective is a word that describes a noun. So, if we think about, like, say our noun was not, and we wanted to add an adjective, we would say it was the starry night, or it was the scary night, it was the dark night, it was the windy night, it was the cold night. All these words are adjectives. They're describing the night and giving us a better picture in our mind. So that's what this who or which clause is going to do for our writing. And one really good way to use this is whenever you have two kind of simple sentences that you can combine that are talking about the same subject, you can use this who which, such as in the example here. So if we look here at our example, we have the two sentences. The boy was stubborn. He refused to let go of the nuts. Now, if we look at the sentence, the boy was stubborn, the word stubborn is already an adjective, right? So we can add the word who in front of this. The boy who was stubborn refused to let go of the nuts. So we would just remove this repeated subject because he and the boy are the same person, right? So the boy who was stubborn refused to let go of the nuts. It flows better and it's not so choppy as those simple sentences. Now, another important thing to remember about these who which clauses is that these clauses are actually called a non-essential clause. And what that means is you could easily take out that little bitty fragment or clause and you would still have a full sentence. The boy refused to let go of the nuts is still a complete sentence. It has a subject, a verb, and a predicate. So that's a full sentence. But to make it sound better, we would add that little fragment. Now, who was stubborn? That's not actually a sentence, right? Because I'm not using that as a question. So that's what we would call a fragment or a dependent clause. It's got to have something else to go with it for it to make sense. Okay, so the thing you should have learned and probably may not remember, so just in case you don't, is that anytime we have non-essential clauses, we have in the middle of a sentence, we have to always set those off in commas. So, like here, we have who was stubborn. You see here that we have a comma before who and a comma after stubborn. So that lets us know that this is non-essential. Okay. Now, another thing we've got to talk about is when do you use who and when do you use which? So you would use who when you are talking about a person or a character, such as an animal, that is taking on a human persona and taking on human traits, such as Jacques in Cinderella. He wasn't just a little rat that she saw running across the floor. He was a character. He talked and he interacted with Cinderella and he took on human characteristics. So Jacques is a character and therefore we would use the word who when we do describe Jacques. Okay? However, if we're talking about like things, places, or if we just said the rats who scared the kid, the rats which scared the lady, ran and hide. So, in this case, that rat isn't taking on a human persona, it just scared the lady. Okay? So, in that case, it would be a witch. Now, another thing I want to show you guys is when you get over here and you're doing this assignment, clear this off. I can show you again. Okay. When you get over here and you're doing this assignment, it says correct the sentence by adding a who which clause with beginning and ending commas. You will need to add the opening comma directly before the who which word. So as we see here, the grasshopper was lazy. He wouldn't gather food for the winter. So you can see in this example, the comma is right before the who. And I want to show you down here, this is your actual assignment. If you click on grasshopper, it would let you add this comma here. And technically that would be correct. However, it's not going to grade it as being correct. Okay, the computer can't pick it up as being correct in that spot. So you would click on was and you would put in your comma and then you would put in the word who. Okay, and there's no space or anything. Just make sure that when you put in your comma to begin that clause that you're putting it in the box with the who, not with the word before it. Okay, so the grasshopper who was lazy. And when we come here, because we've turned this into a clause, we're going to take the period off, add a comma. The grasshopper who was lazy, he wouldn't help gather food for the winter. Now, like I said before, when we come off of, after we stop with our who which clause, we're going to look, the next sentence should begin with a verb. So we're going to go in and we're going to delete this duplicate subject. Okay, so the grasshopper who was lazy wouldn't help gather food for the winter. So that combined those sentences, made them sound better, and kind of dressed it up a little. Okay, so that's what you're going to do here. You're going to go through here, figure out if it's who or which, add your commas, and take out the duplicate subjects, and then hit ready and continue to go on to the next part.